Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here with us today as we continue to have conversations on how to break the barriers and how do we move as a community of color, particularly as women of color, Black and Brown women, how we move the stakes from a place of surviving to thriving. How do we break the barriers? How do we center our mental health? How do we center our well-being? How do we support our families? And as we look towards the holiday season, how do we actually center self-care? I am so honored to be able to sit here today with Lala Anthony. Lala is a person that I personally have looked up to for many years. I remember when my parents dragged me to a Market America conference, and I was just only really excited because it was in Miami. But when I got there, Lala was one of the presenters, and she said something that, really changed the trajectory of my life. She spoke about owning my story, owning our stories, and not being ashamed of where we come from or who we are, but using it to fuel how we show up and what it means for us as we drive towards success. Lala is a Brooklyn native. She is extremely supportive and unapologetic about how she shows up and advocates for women, particularly women of color in communities of color and marginalized communities. Lala is an author, a New York Times best-selling author. Lala is an actress. She is I can go on and on about just the amazing things that Lala does, not only for our communities, but how she shows up in a way that just represents excellence. And not only does it represent excellence in a way that it tells us you could be excellent. You can also center the things that you need, and you can also make sure that as you move forward that you take your community along with you. So I am so honored and so privileged to be in community with Lala as we talk about what it truly means in this moment to center self-care, well-being, and mental health. Lala, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate that intro. Thank you so much.
Lala, and I'm going to dive right in because there are so many questions that I have for you, but I want to be really intentional about how we use the time that we have together. I know that you've used your platform throughout the many years and your influence to always center and advocate for the needs of women, like I said earlier, women of color. I know that you always advocate for mental health awareness, but I also am really sensitive to the fact that you recently had your own personal health scare. And I want to also just mention first that we, the YWCA community, are wrapping our arms around you. And we're so glad that you are here with us to share that experience with us. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what that health scare experience was?
Yeah, so, it kind of fits into the whole discussion, what we're talking about with paying attention to ourselves, paying attention to our bodies, making sure we're in a good mental place. I was told a while ago that I had a heart condition, and like a lot of us do, I kind of just ignored it or, told myself that it was just that I was working too hard or I needed sleep. I always say, we as our people, like we like to self-diagnose. We got all the answers. We don't go to doctors. It's like, put some Vicks, put some Vaseline, you're going to be fine. Like this, we got all the answers. But I was one of those people who was just like, oh, I just need more rest. I just need this. And Memorial Day weekend, we had a barbecue and I felt really faint and lightheaded, and thankful to my cousin and my family who was here, who forced me to go to the emergency room. And I was forced to have a cardiac ablation the day after I was admitted to the emergency room. And I am so glad that things, like you said, worked out the way they did, but the story could have been a lot different. And that was me ignoring very blatant signs, me feeling like I can self-diagnose and fix this on my own, and me not paying attention to what my body was trying to tell me. And it's just so important for us as women. We just know we're taking care of our families, we're taking care of kids, we're in relationships, we're juggling a million different things, and we always put ourselves last. And my mom always says, if you're not good, you're not going to be good for anybody. You're not going to be good at work. You're not going to be a good mom. You're not going to be good in friendships and relationships or whatever it is. So we have to pay attention to those signs. So I am truly grateful that it turned out the way it did, but it was an eye opener to me on a lot of levels with how I need to realign myself, my life, being okay with saying no to certain things, feeling like it's okay to say, hey, I need a day today to just rest and relax and not feel guilty about it. I'm learning a lot through this experience.
I'm so glad you mentioned VIX. Because I would tell you that the healthcare system has not been a friend, and this is from personal experience. And I oftentimes come to this work from a personal level before I talk about the statistics, right? And from a personal experience, the healthcare system has not been a friend to my family and my experience, particularly someone that is an immigrant, grew up in Brooklyn, and my grandmother would tell me use Vicks for everything, and didn't matter if I had a headache, a cold, the flu. It was like, just get Vicks and you'll be fine, right? Like, whether it's the Vicks inhaler, the Vicks rub, or just get Vicks and we'll be fine. But I think it's important that you mention that we cannot self-diagnose.
No.
We cannot be the ones to be doctor, but to say that we also need to make sure that we're in situations and systems that also support our needs. And as people of color, when we walk into these institutions and we walk into healthcare facilities, that they're ready to accept us as full human beings and not shortcut the services that we need because we're treated sometimes like second-class citizens because we're people of color, right? And that is a lot of the things that we hope to discuss later on in our time during the summit. But Lala, I know you to be, and when I say I know you, I want to be really, really clear that I don't know you personally, but from following you on social media, you have been really personal. You've been really intentional about what you share and how you share pieces of yourself. And I really admire that because we sometimes feel like we need to overshare. What made you share this piece of your personal life with us?
Well, I talked about it with my son, and he had told me, Mom, this could help so many people who have a similar condition, or just, it doesn't even have to be a similar condition, just dealing with something that they've been putting off, or a nagging pain, or something that they're just like, I'll get to that later. He was just like, Mom, this story can inspire a lot of people, because I didn't want the attention of like posting on Instagram, me in the hospital. I didn't want everybody calling and freaking out. Like, I don't like that type of attention. So I didn't want that. But when my son said the story can really inspire so many people, and after the Self magazine cover came out and so many people wrote me, and even friends of mine who's like, I never told you, but I have this going on. I never told you that now this prompted me to go get checked out for this. I mean, the response was overwhelming of so many people that were moved by the story to take care of themselves. So I felt like by sharing, it was such an accomplishment because so many people understood, heard my story, and took it in and was like, you know what, I got to get checked out, or I got to pay more attention to this. So my son was right in that aspect of just saying that it could help so many people out there. And to me, that to me is the greatest measure of like success, being able to help someone else, whether it's one person, 10 people, 100 people, being able to help someone else in any kind of way. I feel like that's why we have these platforms. That's why we're giving, what we're given as, being a voice for so many people. You got to use it for good. So the thought of just being able to help even one person just makes all the difference for me.
And isn't it funny how sometimes our kids are just like the biggest pieces of wisdom in our lives, right? I would never let my son hear me say that, but it is very, very true.
And for him too, it was a traumatizing experience. He was here when, the ambulance came and they took me off. He's witnessed all of that. So he was seeing everything in real time as it was happening. And he was just like, Mom, you have to tell people about what happened. You can help. So him witnessing it, also it was traumatic, but it was good in a way because he got to understand even in his life, things that he needs to pay attention to, or what could happen when you ignore certain things. He got all of the lessons as well for watching what, happened to me.
We thank him and we thank you and we thank him and we thank him some more because, as I'm listening, I think about myself and so many of my friends when we go through situations, whether it's a health scare or when we're dealing with mental health, we oftentimes think that if we share that it is a sign of weakness because we have been programmed as Black women, as women of color, that we have to hold everything and we have to hold it in.
I had those thoughts too. Like I had those same thoughts, like sign of weakness, or, is my management team going to see this and say, we can't work her as hard anymore. She can't handle the workload, or we got to find somebody else to do this. I was worried about all those things. I remember I was in the middle of filming Wu-Tang when everything happened, and I was in the hospital, and I'm literally telling my manager, like, you know, I'm supposed to be on set later today. Like, what am I going to do? And she's like, you just had heart surgery. Like, you're on the phone talking to me about having to be at work. But when you talk about the system, it makes us feel like we can't miss a day, or someone else is going to come in and get the job, or we're not allowed to have a personal day to just clear our mind or whatever. We're just, like you said, we just have to be strong, take it all, whatever's going on, take, and never, you know, act like anything's wrong, come in, do the job, smile, have no issues. And it's unrealistic. And that's why you're seeing now, you know, so many people starting to really focus on their mental health and be okay with it. And also so many people that are struggling with, you know, dealing with the pressure of everything we just talked about, because after all this time, it's finally weighing on us. And then you add the pandemic on top of it and everything going on now with COVID and these new strands. It's like, we can't catch a break. So it's more important now than ever to put yourself first, to put your mental health first, and pay attention to these things and be okay with saying, hey, I need a day. You know, I need a day off. Where I'm at with work, like my team, they'll say, okay, well, Thursday and Friday, you don't have anything going on, so we're going to do this, that. It's like, I'm okay with not having something going on 1 or 2 days. I'm okay with that. I actually enjoy being able to not do something and just focus on a self-care day or whatever it is. It's essential, because then when you come back to work or whatever it is that you do, you come back energized, you're excited about it again. When you're just running yourself in the ground, nothing is fun. Work's not fun. Being a mom's not fun. None of that is fun. You're just so like irritated and aggravated about everything.
And so what has that process looked like? Because let me just be really honest. I'm trying, but I'm failing big time. I'm failing because when I say don't put anything on my calendar on Friday, and then something comes up, I feel like if I say no, then someone's going to say, oh, well, she can't handle her job. Right. And then it's an indictment on my ability to lead.
But the thing is, I struggle with it too. Like, I don't have the answers, but I know the answer is you have to pay attention to what your body's telling you, what your mind is telling you, and you have to be able to stand up for yourself and say, I need this day. I'm a hard worker. You guys know I work hard. You guys know I get the job done, but I need today as a rest day or whatever it is. You have to be okay with that. But I'm the same way. Like, I don't ever want to miss out. I always feel like, you know, so grateful for the job, so grateful for the opportunity that I'm like, I can't mess this up. I can't, you know, take a day, or I can't be, you know, on every second. But being on every second requires a lot of energy and a lot of time, you know, as well. So I'm just getting better at, and I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to get better at just being okay with saying I have to put myself first, and not just in work and everything, in life, period. Just, it's okay for me to put myself first. I have to be okay with that.
And putting yourself first is not selfish, right? Because that's something that I think we are oftentimes struggling with, because people make us feel like we're being selfish. Like, how dare you try to put yourself first when we're in a pandemic, or this person needs this, or so when do we ever get to center our needs? Is something that I think is also really important. You know, what is
so important?
Yeah. How do what's coming up for me in this moment, and I think, you know, as I'm listening and learning, because I'm far from perfect, and I'm far from anything that anyone needs to say she's doing it correctly. Let's learn from her. So thank you for teaching me also. This is a learning moment for me. So we all are in this journey together. Some of us are maybe doing it better than some, but we're all in this journey together. And I think that is the beauty of us as women. No woman left behind. We're all in this together. How have you had to adjust the folks that you keep close to you to help you hold those boundaries? Because sometimes I know that we say we want to hold boundaries for our mental health and our personal health, but then it really depends on who we keep around us that can help us hold those boundaries or completely dismantle those boundaries.
Yeah, I think it's important to have your support system is definitely super, super important no matter what. Like, but my support system has generally always been my family. So it's been great in that standpoint that it's been my family. And I really feel like my family, I'm sorry about this. I just have to take a quick second. I really feel like my family always has my best interest at heart. And the thing about my family is they're able to pull my coattail and say, slow down, you're doing too much. You look like you haven't slept in days. You're running yourself in the ground. Like, they don't care about the Hollywood aspect. They don't care about being on set, this and that. They care about me. And it's like, you're not looking like yourself. You're working too hard. You haven't slept in 3 days. You got to get it together. Like, I like having that honesty around me and people that are willing to pull my coattail and like, look, I don't care if it's this. Tell them that you need a day today, or tell them that, you're having a certain kind of day, and be okay with owning that and saying that. So my support system has been great in that aspect, and also been great in helping me balance all the things I have going on. So whether it's my mom, my brother, my cousin, when it comes to my son, Cayenne, saying, we'll take him to practice today so you can go do this. And I don't feel like, I need 100 of me to get it done, or I don't feel like I'm being spread thin in a million different directions. It's great to have a support system that can help with kids or whatever else you have going on, so that you can focus on the things that you want to do as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, sometimes the hard part for us and women of color is building that support system and having people around us that truly have our best interests at heart. And that is sometimes that in itself is a task.
And it's a task. And sometimes, everyone's not as fortunate to have that. But I will also say that this is another thing I talk about a lot, being our own cheerleader, being our own advocate. Like, so many times we depend on other people, whether it's a man or a female that we're in a relationship with. Like, we depend on them to make us feel good about ourselves, or pull our coattails. Sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves and be able to do that for ourselves, because we don't all have that. And I feel like you're always disappointed when you're depending on everyone else for the answers, or everyone else to tell you what to do or how to do it. I think inside of each of us lies the answer to whatever questions, we have, but we just have to pay attention to that and be our own advocates and be our own fans, of ourselves. I always say that, because if we're constantly looking for validation or someone else to tell us, hey, take the day off, or hey, you did great today, or whatever it is, you end up disappointed a lot of the times. You have to have that confidence and feel good about yourself, and also be in tune with yourself to know, all right, today I got to slow down, or today I got all the energy. I can work for 17 hours straight and be fine. You know that nobody else is living inside your body but you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And my grandmother always used to say, nothing is going to be right until you're right within.
Yeah, it's so true.
Right. And which leads me to the mental health piece of our work. We still, even though we've made a lot of progress, we still very much live in a culture that is very, it's hard on mental health, and there's still a large stigma, unfortunate stigma attached to mental health needs for communities of color. So can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of centering one's mental health, and what you would like to impart on our audience, particularly our young women of color who may be shamed in their schools, in their homes, in their communities, regarding mental health issues, and just afraid to raise their hand and say, hey, I need help. I cannot do this alone.
Right. And I think, for a long time, I was one of, those women and one of those people. I mean, even to this day, my mom's like, therapy, what you got to go to therapy for? Like, you're going to pay somebody else. If you need somebody to talk to, you could just talk to me. Like, that's my mom's classic line. And it's like, sometimes you just need that unbiased opinion or unbiased advice from someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know the situation that you're talking about. And you're just able to speak freely and feel like there's no judgment there. The person's just listening. It's just a sounding board. Sometimes with me, I just need to hear myself say it out loud. And when I say it out loud, I'm like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound right. Or, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, sometimes I just need that sounding board to just talk out loud. And for me, therapy has been key and essential in that point. But growing up, I never heard about therapy. That wasn't something that my family talked about. You think of therapy, you think, oh, you go to therapy because you're a crazy person. You go to therapy because, you're unraveling or whatever. But that's not the case now. Some of your most popular celebrities that people look up to and love, go to therapy. Some of the most successful people in the world have weekly or 2 times a week standing therapy appointments. That's just like the same when people go into the gym. They just incorporate therapy in their day-to-day life and what they're doing. And I found the people that I interact with who are in therapy and are okay with, being in therapy, I can see the difference than those who aren't. It's just a different swag. You're more transparent. You're more confident in how you talk. You have better tools on how to deal with issues when they arise instead of just trying to figure it all out on your own. So, to young women out there, I would just say you're not alone and it's the right thing to do. The crazy person to me is the one that's not going to therapy, the one that's recognizing they just need someone to talk to and not doing anything about it. And therapy doesn't even have to be just when something's going bad. You can go to therapy when something's going good and you just want to talk and you want to feel celebrated and you just want to talk about your accomplishment, maybe with your friends or your family. You don't want to feel like you're bragging about something, or you don't want to talk about this new job or how great you're doing. And they're still, not doing great with their lives. I've been in that position before as well. So sometimes therapy is just a place where you could go to feel celebrated and feel like, accomplished with what you're doing. Therapy is not only when there's something bad going on. And I feel like that's another stigma. Like a lot of times we only run to therapy when we're having a problem, run to marriage counseling when we're having a problem. Therapy is supposed to sustain us in a good mental space throughout our lives, not just when something, negative or bad is happening.
I completely agree. And let me just be really transparent and say, my therapist that's my girl.
Right.
She continues to get me through some times where I'm just like, sis, without you, it would have turned out really, really bad for a lot of us.
Exactly.
And I hold her really, really close because she does make me feel, like you say, like I'm not alone and that I'm not the only one. And you know what is most important? I may be dealing and struggling most times and sometimes with my mental health, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with me. I could still be a whole person.
And another thing, I wanted to touch on with therapy is sometimes you have to go sit down with a couple people. It's like anything else. You got to find your fit. You might not get the fit on the first one. Some people go to one appointment. They're like, oh, this isn't for me. You got to find the person, like you said, your therapist, that's your girl. That's who gets you through certain things. You have to find your fit. And it might take a couple sessions or a couple different people before you're like, okay, this is a person I feel comfortable with, or this is the person that gets me. So be okay with going to, a couple different appointments and just finding what that fit is. Because when you ultimately find that person, the goal is to stick with them and have them go on this journey of life, with you.
Yeah, and it's a commitment to self, right? And we're all at different journeys, and I had to decide because it was really hard, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that because when I got the courage to actually say I'm gonna go see a therapist because just wanted to hide under the bed and not come out. It just can't be the way of life, right? It just can't be. And so when I got the courage to say I'm going to go find a therapist, it took me a while. It took me at least 3 different therapists to find one that I'm like, no, you see me.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't make me feel less than every time I leave that session.
People get disappointed and discouraged. They go for one appointment. They're like, this isn't really for me. That person didn't really get me, or they're not speaking my language. But sometimes it might take a couple to find that fit. But when you find that fit, it definitely is life-changing and just so helpful in so many ways.
Because it's a relationship, right? You invest in relationships, like friendships, like intimate relationships. You invest in that, and to me, I feel like the finding a therapist is the same. So thank you for sharing that. You speak about your son Cayenne, and we've seen him kind of grow up before our eyes. And again, we thank him for even encouraging you to be open about the health scare. And I'm really glad that we could add scare after health. We really, really thank him and just want to center him and lift him up for that and just being so wise.
I will definitely let him know that.
For that. But how are you managing motherhood, the pandemic, all of the different things that you have going on, just the excellence that you're leading and that you bring to who you are as a woman of color? How do you manage that and still be really present in a way that we see we see through social media and other outlets, we see your son just show up in your life and just be like a constant. And we hear it in your voice when you speak to us, how much this young man means to you. How do you manage and hold all of that and still have time for yourself?
Well, for me, my son comes first and everything else comes after that. So as long as that's my template. Cayenne first, everything else after that. So as long as Cayenne is taken care of, or, where he needs to be, or he's feeling supported, I can deal with everything else. But Cayenne has to be good first. And that's just how, I base my life, my schedule, and everything. But the balancing act between any working mom or any woman that's doing a lot of things is difficult. I don't have it all figured out every day. There's some days that I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this anymore. There's no way I'm going to get all this done. Like, to be on set and read lines and be in acting class and, become certain characters, be a mom, show up for practices, basketball games, be an entrepreneur and do all these other things. Like, it does get really overwhelming and difficult. And it goes back to the original part of our conversation. I'm just getting better at paying attention to myself and saying, you know what, maybe today I can only get 3 things done. I can't do the 6 things I normally do. Today's a 3-thing list kind of day or whatever, or I'm not going to get to everything today, and being okay with that. Because I also find that we're our own worst critics. Like, we're putting the pressure on ourselves more than anyone else is. It's like we're telling ourselves, oh, you got to get all of this done today. And if you don't, the day was a waste. The day was a failure. You didn't get to it all. We put that pressure on ourselves. So it's just about managing our schedules better, managing our lives better. And that's something I'm still trying to do. I haven't mastered it yet. Some days are better than others. Some days I'm like, oh, I got it. And then the very next day I'm like, what happened? Everything is a mess all of a sudden. Like, I'm human. It happens, but I have a great support system. And like I said, my template is Cayenne first, everything else after. And that's kind of the template that I live by.
And Grace, right? Like you just said, like one day everything may just fall into place and everything is great. The next day it may just be like, so what's happening now? Like,
Exactly.
this is not how we plan. But you give yourself grace in a way that for those bad days, it doesn't cripple you, right?
And I always love the saying, like, one bad day doesn't mean a bad life. Like, when we have a bad day, we just pile it all on. Like, I can put myself in the deepest, darkest hole off of one bad day, just thinking about everything in my life and why did this happen and why me and this is that. But you have to understand, one bad day doesn't equal a bad life, and take it what it is. It's okay to have bad days sometimes. Every day is not going to be your best day. Every day is not going to be the greatest day ever. We're human. We live in the real world. Every day is not like that. But understanding, okay, this is not my best day. And I get that. I can acknowledge that. But tomorrow I'm going to wake up with positive thoughts and shift my thinking into this next day. But I'm going to allow myself to have this moment or this day to feel however I'm feeling, but I'm not going to let this carry on into the next day and the day after. I think that's really important, because just to think that every day is just peaches and roses and sunshines and clouds and rainbows, like, that's just not realistic. It's just not true. And you have to understand that and be conscious of that. Like, oh, what is today? Today is a bad day. All right, cool. How can I navigate through this day and get myself into a more positive headspace to be able to deal with the rest of the day, or be able to be better for tomorrow?
I love that. I love that. And I'm not gonna take up any more of your time because I'm so appreciative, and I know that our
I really
entire
enjoy
network.
conversating too. Like, I'm learning as well and talking to women like yourself. And it's just even more of an understanding for me. Like, we're not alone. A lot of us are going through the same things in this day and age and trying to juggle like career and relationships and children and this and that. Like, it's really difficult. Everyone's going through their own struggles and their own journey. And like, people see,
Mm.
people who are quote unquote celebrities or people in the public eye. It's like, oh, I wish I had their life. Oh, they got it all together. They just know how to cover it up well. Like, you could put up a good Instagram picture and everyone's like, oh, you look so great. And people don't know what's going on behind the scenes, how your day is. And like I said, just know we all deal with similar issues. We all deal with insecurities. We all deal with self-esteem issues. It's just getting better tools in our toolbox on how to handle those things, when they happen, or those feelings when they happen, whether it's therapy, prayer, meditation, family, whatever it is. Like, I always say, I got to get in my toolbox. I tell my son the same thing when it comes to him on the basketball court. Get in your toolbox. Like, you got the tools there. So to pull them out and start utilizing them so you can get better at whatever it is you're doing. So I think us as Black, Hispanic women, let's just start developing our toolbox. So when these things happen, we can pull out what we need to get through it.
I was gonna ask like what you would tell your younger self, and I probably still ask that, but this whole toolbox thing is so meaningful and so timely. Sometimes we don't
Yes,
even.
my son had a game the other day. I'm screaming at him. I'm like, getting your toolbox. And he understands what I mean by that. Like, getting your toolbox, utilize the things that you know can help you in certain situations. At that point, I was talking about basketball, but it applies to life in general. Get in your toolbox. Understand, like, today, I might need to call my therapist. Today, I need a me day. Today, I can't necessarily be bothered with my kids all day. I got to step away for 5-10 minutes and pray and meditate. Those are the things that are in our toolbox that tell us what we need. It's important.
So is that what you would tell your younger self? The importance of recognizing that you do have a toolbox
Yeah,
and to tap into it.
yeah, and I would also tell my younger self, like, for me, the younger me had such a need of being liked by everybody, being, being everyone's friend, or, everyone. I just wanted to be liked by everyone. And now I understand, as I've gotten older, like, no matter what you do, everyone's not going to like you. Everyone's going to criticize things you do. It could be the closest people to you. It could be your family. Everyone's going to have something to say. Everyone knows all the answers until they're in the situation. Everybody can tell you exactly what to do until they're in that situation. And as I've gotten older, I've understood that. So now I've had to learn to make decisions that are based on what makes me feel good, what I want to do for myself, not based on what this one's going to think, or is this one not going to like me if I do this and that. And that's what I'm learning as, I'm getting older and just becoming more secure in who I am and myself. And I think that's really, important, especially in this day and age of like social media and everyone always looking so perfect and filters and this and that. It just can really take a hit on, how you feel about yourself, because this is what you're looking at all day, but it's not reality. It's not real life.
So Lala, I want to thank you again for joining us. I've heard from you today that we need to get into our toolbox. We need to pay attention to our bodies. We need to listen to our bodies and make time for ourselves. We need to center our self-care. We need to center our mental health. We're also not alone. And you didn't say this today, but I was in the room when you said this so many years ago. And while Miami brought me to the room because I was in college, and if my parents is going to fund a trip to Miami, I was going to be there. But what I heard, and God put me in that room for a reason, is you don't need to be ashamed of where you come from, and that there is value in you regardless of what you come from. And those were your words from the stage of Market America. And I want to thank you for that, because it's never left me. I want to thank you for just everything that you do in the way that you show up for us. And when I say us, I mean Black, brown women of color. I want to thank you. It was so heartwarming to see you show up for Junior Guzman's Leaf and his family. I could go on, and I also could talk to you forever. I know none of those things are an option, but my gratitude, not only as I represent the YWCA and our network of 2.3 million women, but as I represent myself as a mother of an 11-year-old boy. I'm getting emotional just being here in your presence with your transparency and vulnerability. And it just means a lot to have you in our corner as women of color. So Lala, thank you. And I will give you the last word if there's anything you wish to share to our audience today.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. And, I'm learning as I go. I don't have it all figured out either. We're all work in progress. We're learning as we go. And I would just leave everyone with, something that my dad has told me my whole life. And I get chills when I say it, but just reminding ourselves to love yourself from the inside out. Society has it wrong. We are loving ourselves from the outside in. Makeovers, this, that, filters, whatever. It starts within. None of that stuff is going to matter if you're not finding that happiness within. I don't have any problem with the makeovers, the surgery, this or that, whatever you want to do. But if you don't deal with what's going on inside, none of that stuff even matters. So just a reminder to women out there, Black women, Hispanic women, we got to start loving ourselves from the inside out. It's very, very important.
Peace and gratitude. Happy holidays to you. And thank you so much.
Happy holidays. This was so enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.